to TK Live. Today is Thursday, March 31st, and as always, Matthew and I are out here in the garage, and we want to talk some trucks with you guys.
Always want to talk trucks.
So here on TK Live, we like to do a whole bunch of things. We like to, first of all, cover the latest in pickup truck news. We follow what's going on in the world of trucks, and we want to share it with you guys. Second of all, we want to answer your questions. I think you guys know that. So jump in the chat, ask away. We'll do our best to answer them. As always, I'll remind you, you can also email us anytime you want at hey@trucking.ca. And then we'll also maybe talk about sort of what's coming up and what we have on the horizon, because we got a lot of exciting stuff
What
going
are we
on.
driving? What are we testing? What are we doing?
Absolutely. So today we will kick off with some news, and you probably saw it right there in the headline. You might have already heard about it. Stellantis revealed a brand new gasoline engine. They're calling it the Hurricane. Now this is a 3-liter inline 6 twin turbo engine. And Stellantis, this isn't that common, Matt, for a brand to come out and say, hey, here's a new engine. Usually it's here's a new vehicle with a new engine in it. But they just announced the engine by itself, and I think that alone lets us know that this is a big deal. This engine is going in a lot of different products, and the absolute truth of it is, it's replacing the HEMI V8.
You teased it off the top with the title of tonight's stream. We think this is the precursor to the V8 HEMI just slowly fading into the background as we chase that, miles per gallon target across all the models.
And the Hellcat, for that matter, the big 6.2, all of those big V8s are going
And I think
away.
to keep their fan base happy, they stuck with big power, big numbers. So we're not losing out, but we're also going to just downsize a little.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, they're just following market trends. Everybody is going this way. They have to go this way too. Stellantis already says too, they want half of their lineup to be battery powered by 2030. So this is also a bit of a stopgap between right now and 2030, because they can't let that V8 last from now until then because of government regulations. So let's actually talk about the power now a little bit, Matt.
Sure.
So we have 2 different outputs. Stellantis announced there was going to be a standard output version, and then there's going to be a high output version. Now the standard output, they say, is going to make more than 400 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. Now go for the high output version, and they say it's going to make more than 500 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. So like you mentioned, those are monster numbers. Those are V8 replacing numbers. And they also said that those aren't, stuck in stone. Depending on the application, there's going to be a lot of different power outputs.
I like how we were just talking just ahead of the going live here, and we were literally saying, it's funny how they said, here's an engine, but not here's a new car.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, here's all these great numbers. This thing is going to go fast and pull hard, and it's going to be great. But if you put it in this, it might be a little different. If you put it in that, it might be a little different. So just bear with us.
Well, and talking about the products, we can mention them now. I mean, Ram 1500, the Jeep Grand Wagoneer is the one we know for a fact. The company has announced that is where this engine is going to land first in those big Jeep SUVs. Makes sense.
Yep.
Again, I mentioned Ram. Probably other Jeep products, maybe Wrangler.
It'll make its way into Jeep probably pretty quick.
Absolutely. And then what's more interesting to me is also Dodge Durango, and then the large cars. Charger and Challenger, I think next generation of those muscle cars is also going to be this Hurricane. And again, with 500 horsepower, I don't think we're going to complain about that.
We're not going slow by any stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple other kind of details here. Stellantis says that the engine makes 90% of its peak torque from 2,350 RPM all the way to redline. So it sounds like it's going to be super torquey, even in the low end. They gave us a whole bunch of different information here on sort of how the engine is put together. I don't know. To me, it's a lot of gibberish. Some of the things I will read, though. The turbos on the standard output deliver a peak boost of 22 PSI, whereas the high output is going to deliver a peak boost of 26 PSI. And then they also talk about how, it's twin turbocharged, 1 turbo for 3 cylinders each. It sounds like it's going to be a nice package. And besides just the power numbers too, we also have to realize it's going to be paired with a battery at some point, and it will also be a plug-in hybrid with the turbo engine.
It's interesting, yeah. So you're definitely going with the low inertia, high flow turbochargers. So they're each going to be feeding 3 cylinders on 2 different banks. That's going to be pretty awesome. And that's how they're able to hit those 90% peak torque numbers at such low RPM for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything else in there seems pretty standard. I mean, it's nice of them to give us the numbers, but high pressure fuel pumps, dual overhead cams, you know, everything here I'm reading is just fuel savings, i.e. a plasma transfer wire arc coating in the cylinder bores for ultra thin, low friction wear. That's just minimal rotational loss, maximum power. Save fuel, everybody has some fun. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I almost forgot.
There it
Here's a
is
photo
there.
of
We
the
got
engine too.
We can stop talking about
If
it.
you want to take a look at what an engine looks like on a white space, it never looks as good out of a car, right?
No.
And I love that they left the engine cover on the top too. Like, what are they covering up? But there you go. And just in case you guys wanted to see the Hurricane, there it is. Expect this engine to be in just about every Stellantis product coming very soon. And I think the other thing I'll say real quick at the end of this is, Matt, it's true that these V8s, I think these last model year V8s, especially the Hellcats, these are going to become collector's items. I can see in my lifetime, 20, 30 years, where guys are hunting for these big V8s because they all went away.
There's a fear in the market right now, and I see it a lot at the dealership level where we talk about the electrification, we talk about the downsizing, the turbocharging, and guys go, well, I'm never giving up my V8. And you're right, you don't have to, but eventually it's gonna get tougher, and it's gonna get tougher. And yeah, actually one interesting point that just kind of came into my brain here, with this new engine, the Ram 1500 Classic, that's still running the 5.7. Will this be the death of the Classic?
That's a good question,
with
yeah.
that new engine, or will they retool it for the new motor?
It'd be pretty cool if they put the new motor in the old truck. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That basically means that the Classic's days are numbered, which is surprising. The Classic is still going. It's like 5 model years now of Classic,
insane.
which is very impressive. It obviously is making them a lot of money, or else they would stop doing it, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, that's on that new Ram engine. Definitely exciting. I think we're all a little sad that the HEMI V8 and the Hellcat are all going to go away. But exciting things coming from Stellantis and the whole industry, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we can move on now to our next bit of news, and this news comes from Ford. It is a brand new off-road package called the Rattler. This is the F-150 Rattler, and the idea here is to offer a base package, Matt. And we give Ford, you know, not crap, but we talk a lot about how they go above and beyond with their off-road trucks. The Raptor is insane and has every bit of technology on it, but it's really expensive too, right? You pay for it.
It's a lot of fun.
And this is the exact opposite. So the Rattler package is an XL series truck. That's a base model F-150 with the FX4 content on it, which is really cool, right? So what does the truck get?
You're getting skid plates, you're getting that rear locker, hill descent control, off-road shocks and suspension, all-terrain tires. It's going to be running that same dual exhaust, 18-inch aluminum wheels, badging and graphics, onyx seats, that's just a fun word, bronze accents and a desert theme, and the F-150 Rattler, well, you're going to see it in dealerships this fall.
And it does look pretty cool, so, you know, it is some of those really functional upgrades. I love that it has the locker and the skid plates, and then, of course, it's always about styling as well, too, right?
Can we talk about the name for a second, though?
Yeah.
It's a twofold thing. First one, no one wants to hear the word rattle when they think about a new car, but that's besides the point. Second one, do you think it's so similar to Raptor so that somebody could just kind of mumble it? Hey, what kind of new truck did you buy? I got a Rattler. Was that a Raptor? Yeah, I got a Raptor. Yeah, whatever you heard.
Yeah, I hadn't considered that, but it definitely keeps the theme alive. But you are right that, you know, I could describe my old Big Green as a Rattler as well. It's rattling down the road. Anyways, here's the interior, very basic, cloth seats, but, you know, this is cool, and I think that it does signal that there's a place in the market for these really basic trucks with a little bit more of the off-road goodies to go along with them, right?
It's a market correction. Everything kept blowing up, getting bigger, getting more expensive. At some point, you know, you guys have been crying about it for years. What happened to the base truck? What happened to the cheap truck?
Yeah. And it's also true that, you know, there's a lot of brands. The one that comes to top of mind, because we've been talking about it a lot recently, is the Nissan Frontier. Here in Canada, if you want Pro 4X, that's a top trim truck. It's not like you can get the base truck and then add on the Pro 4X stuff to it. And that's just one little example. But yeah, some brands, they force you to go into that top trim to get all the good stuff. And I think Ford has always been one of the better brands at giving you more a la carte choices, letting you choose things. And this is another example. Now, we don't have pricing yet, Matt, so it's hard for me to say if it's a great bargain yet, but you know, still, it's going to be pretty relatively affordable compared to a Tremor or a Raptor or anything else, I think, in the lineup.
Yeah.
So there we go. That's it for news this week. Those are our two big stories. We can move on to our canned questions now. I see you guys down there in the comments, so keep on throwing them out there. Keep talking, and we'll get to you guys in a little bit.
Well, yeah, right off the top, Mr. Kyle Dexter is watching because he literally asked us if we could get to his question, and I told him, sit tight, we're coming.
Okay, cool. What's the question? We can shoot. We can go for
All
it
right.
now.
Kyle asks, well, it's a three-parter, so we'll
Yeah.
start with number one. Why does it seem that most payload ratings on half-ton trucks are so low? If you look at a Ford Maverick versus an F-150, sometimes the payload is higher on a Maverick than on an F-150, and I think that makes the F-150 look underrated.
Well, Kyle, this is a great question. Man, how long do you have? Once again, payload is just such a tricky topic. We get into it a lot on the channel. And I agree with you. From our testing, most of the trucks we have roll in, I'm usually disappointed by the payload.
Typically.
I find it going that way more often than the other way. And I was thinking about this when I read your question. And these days, I don't know if it's a payload problem, or should I say if it's a GVWR problem, as much as it's a curb weight problem. These trucks have more. We want more out of them. We want sunroofs. We want steps that have power. We want powered tailgates that lift up. There's another electric motor. So, you know, it goes on. We RAM boxes, LED lights in the bed. I know that doesn't weigh much, but my point here is I think that trucks just keep getting heavier, and that's dragging the payloads down. You know, and there's just more features. And then part of our problem too, personally on our channel, is that most of the trucks we test are top trim.
So they're fully loaded.
It's rare that we get base trucks. And in those base trucks, you're gonna find the better payload ratings. Those trucks are out there, they do exist, but more and more, they're harder to find. You gotta go looking for the truck with good payload.
Yeah.
You don't stumble across it.
Typically when we've optioned out, especially just for argument's sake, the truck that has the max tow rating, the truck that has the max payload rating, it's always base model, single cab, 8-foot bed. With
Two-wheel
a tow,
drive.
with two-wheel drive,
Yeah.
with a two-wheel drive. There you go. What's a differential weigh? A couple $100.
Sure.
There's more right off the. Anyway, it's always that base, stripped down, no weight truck. Oh yeah, that'll tow 15,000. Great. No one's buying that.
Yeah. So that's part of the question, part of the answer, I should say. Now, the other thing you mentioned is how like a Maverick and an F-150 can have a crossover of payload, which is kind of ridiculous, right? And I do think that's where the small trucks have an advantage these days, is because they're so lightweight, right? So they generally have these higher payloads. Yep. Now, the real kind of, I don't know, a gray area, I guess we'll call it, is we also all recognize that those payload numbers are not black and white. You know, you're not gonna break the truck if you go over by 100 pounds. And actually, here's a great chance for me to preview a video I have coming up. I just did a maximum payload test in the Nissan Frontier. In fact, I overloaded it. We try not to overload it, but I went over a payload by a few hundred pounds, and it felt fine. Like it did not phase that truck. So it's a really tough conversation, because from the seat of my pants, it was no big deal that the truck was overloaded. And again, let's all be honest, we drive, for the most part, from the seat of our pants. How does that actually feel on the road? And if it feels okay, you're probably gonna drive with it like that. So we come back to this a lot. How much is too much? How much should you overload? I can't give you a clear answer. We can't recommend you ever overload a truck, of course, because if you go over that number, there might be liability issues. And then, Matthew, I think the most telling thing I have to say about payload, I know I'm going on a lot about it, but we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, we do.
We have reached out to all the major manufacturers to get one of their engineers to come on our channel to discuss payload, because I want to understand the nuts and bolts of how they arrive at that GVWR number, where the curb weight comes from, where that little sticker goes on. I really want to understand the process. And so far, no one has agreed to come on and talk to us. No one will answer our questions. Basically, they just say, nah, we would rather not. And I think most of the companies have a team of lawyers that are terrified of getting into legal issues, because none of them can ever say, they'll tell you can't go a pound over the number on the sticker, right? So anyways, it's a sticky subject, but my number one answer to you is why payloads are low is just because trucks are getting heavier, and we just keep asking for more and more out of them, more features, and it's dragging payload numbers down.
All those lengths of wire don't weigh nothing.
Yeah, that too.
All right, I like the second part of your question here, Kyle. Why are tow mirrors not standard on all trucks with a tow package? If you have a trailer brake controller, you should get the mirrors as a package deal.
Preach, Kyle.
Yes, but I'm gonna come at you from the dealer angle here.
Okay.
Money. I honestly, and I've seen this across brands. We've ordered new trucks, but we've all purchased new trucks, and it's always an option. And I always get the option because I'm going to tow something with the truck. But it would be great. It would be lovely if a brand came out and said, "Here is the ultimate tow package.
Yeah, with
this
the mirrors.
fixed dollar amount with this, and this, including mirrors, a trailer brake controller, you know, whatever else, other goodies that you might want." Those are the really two that I only ever want personally. Maybe a stiffer or a taller rear end gear, but that's about it. What else is there to it? Just here, how can we jam you some more?
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. I guess I'm on the other end of it. I do agree with Kyle. I've always felt this way. Why don't I have the towing mirrors? I want them. Give them to me. I think maybe, and maybe I'm wrong about this too, but maybe it came that some customers were getting the towing package and they didn't want them. So then they showed up and then they got upset. So you'd rather it go the other way around because those towing mirrors are massive, right? But anyways, I agree, man. To me, a towing package should include the mirrors.
I'd be interested to hear that number if that's a thing, but yeah.
And then,
all right.
and then actually to go one step further, why don't mid-sized trucks have towing mirrors? Why do I got to buy the stupid clip-ons from the aftermarket? Or in fact, why doesn't General Motors sell me their little aftermarket clip-ons? You know,
Yeah.
maybe they do. I've never seen those in the accessories catalog. But if I know I'm going to tow a travel trailer with my Chevy Colorado, why can't I get towing mirrors? That's something I've never understood either. And then I'll take it a step further. Crossovers, man. Why not? 3,500 pounds, 5,000 pounds. These are real numbers these days.
Make it an option at the very least.
Yeah, you know, why not offer it from the factory? Because your original point was money. It's a chance to make a couple extra bucks.
Exactly.
Because it is one extra thing someone might buy.
Yep.
So anyways, yes, I'm Team Kyle on that one. I love towing mirrors. They should be everywhere.
Oh, I love them. Don't get me wrong. I just, it's the truth of the matter.
Fair.
All righty. Last question, Mr. Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think all vehicles should come with a spare tire, or do you think the mini air pump is okay? Well,
Again, I'm Team Spare Tire.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's going to go against this. And I think the biggest thing I'll say about this is just to caution consumers, because we're in so many crossovers, especially these days, and it's hit or miss. It's 50-50. Some of these vehicles have a spare, some don't. Yeah, for me, man, it's a big deal. I want that spare.
I'd like to see the data, and I don't even know if this would be a NHTSA thing or anything else, but the number of people that actually would get out and put on the spare versus just
fair.
Come get me, take me to wherever I need to get this fixed. I would like to see that number, and I think that's one of the biggest things in doing away with it. It is an expense to the manufacturer to put a full size or a donut even in the car.
Yeah.
That little kit produced en masse is probably half, I'm just gonna ballpark, I don't
Fair
know,
enough.
half the cost of a spare tire. So you throw that in, somebody that has a little bit of wherewithal puts in the slime, pumps it up, drives it to the nearest shop, gets it fixed. The majority of people, I'm willing to go out and say the majority of people just call the tow truck.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm a
That's probably
weirdo.
why they've gone away from it. Yeah, and that's why I feel that way, because I want the knowledge that I can do it if I have
Yeah,
to.
like
Right?
I know I'm an oddball. My wife makes fun of me. We go on a road trip. I come out here in the garage and they're just off screen over there, but I go grab one of my off-season tires. I have a full-size spare I throw in the trunk when we go on a road trip. It's weird, but I'm like, I don't want to drive on a donut for $500K. I'll put on a winter with my all seasons if I have to, just so I can keep going.
Yeah, definitely Team Spare Tire all the way.
Oh yeah,
but
100%.
you're right. It's probably just a cost-cutting measure. That's where these things usually come from, right? And,
Yep.
and going with the times. If they realize they can cut the cost and most people won't notice, why wouldn't?
That's the other thing too. How many
You just
people?
said
How many
most
people
people
even
won't
know?
notice.
Some people, I ask them, you know, what? Do you have a full-size spare? And they go, do I even have one? And they
Exactly.
go, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Yeah, so that was my point off the top, is when you are shopping, especially in the world of crossovers and SUVs, yeah, go walk around the trunk, open up, the bottom of the floor and see what you got back there. Thanks for the questions, Kyle. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
We got a bunch of other questions. We actually got a bunch of Tundra questions, Matt, so we can dive into those now. First of all, we have a question from Mr. David Hartwick. So David asks, is the ride in the Tundra with the TRD off-road different from the non-TRD trims in terms of stiffness or the jittery feeling that you mentioned? And I'm happy you asked. I'm happy to talk about this more, because we have talked about it, and I feel like it's a bit of a nuanced thing, because I've said this before with the Tundra. I didn't feel like the truck was uncomfortable, but it just translates everything into you. And there are these tiny little movements, but you just feel jittery is a good word. You just feel all these little jitters in that truck. Now, I felt it less in the TRD trucks, TRD Off-Road and TRD Pro. The suspension, in my opinion, was a little bit more comfortable. But we've driven, I think I've driven 4 different Tundras now, a bunch of different trims, including just a regular limited. And all of them had that same kind of feeling. I don't attribute it as much to the truck, configuration as much as I do to the new frame stiffness and the suspension setup. Now, I have not driven the truck with airbags yet in the back. That might help it out a little bit as well. But yeah, that might help you out. The TRD Off-Road's a little bit smoother, but still a little bit of that jittery feel.
And I think the biggest thing that we have both said about that truck is the longer wheelbase.
Sure.
The longer wheelbase seemed to be a lot more comfortable while driving.
Real quick, because I am looking at the comments, Northern Toyota bugged us. Mom and Dad were on. They went in the comments. They said hi. Hey, Mom and Dad.
Hi, Mom and Dad.
Mom and Dad are driving north right now. They were in Texas for a month enjoying the sunshine, and now they're coming back up to the cold. So you will see Dad on the channel, and hopefully we'll get him up here for the next live show.
He's gonna be real grumpy. He told us the temperature keeps dropping, and he's still got his shorts on. He's gonna be real angry when he gets here.
Yeah, there they are. Okay, right on. Sorry. So David had a follow-up, and this is an interesting one. I've never heard this before. David says that he recently drove a Tundra Limited, and he found that the heated steering wheel warmed sufficiently. Then he says he sat in a Limited TRD, I'm assuming TRD Off-Road, and found that the wheel didn't get as warm. David, I have not noticed the same thing, man. I can't say I've ever noticed within one product a different wheel heat. However, Matthew and I have been talking about this recently. Brands are different. Some brands, you got to turn that sucker off because it gets too hot, and some brands you're waiting for it. I don't have the Tundra now. It is a little hard to remember, but if memory serves, it was fine. I don't remember it being too hot or too cold.
It's very much a personal preference thing. Like, what's funny, we were driving the Nissan Frontier. I point because it's still in the driveway. We were driving the Nissan Frontier this past weekend, and I said something about it last week, and Steve kind of looked at me and like, you're crazy. I thought the seat warmer on high was burning my butt. And Steve's like, no, it's fine. I can leave it on all day. And it's just a personal preference thing.
That's
like
true
I
too.
used it for 10 minutes and I shut it off. I'm good. That's too hot.
Yeah.
But then again, on this, I've had this complaint at the dealership level several times. People will buy a brand new product and they'll come in and be like, well, my old car was colder, my old car was hotter. I mean, I had a customer come in, this is actually a true story, back in November, they bought a 2013 Audi Alphabet Soup, R7 I believe it was, or RS7?
Yeah, RS7,
anyway,
yeah.
And they drove it for a week. They came back and they said, the heated steering wheel doesn't work. I said, all right. So I get in and I turn it on and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm sure enough, and there it is. It's warm. Great. And I'm like, okay, it works. What do you want? And they're like, well, it doesn't work. I said, it does. She touches it and she goes, it doesn't work. I said, it's there. I can show you. I literally took out a thermal camera and I showed her that the wheel was hot compared to all the other plastics. And then she was like, well, it doesn't work very well. And I was like, it's 10 years old.
Yeah, you said
I'm sorry.
And it's personal preference. Maybe her hand, maybe she was working in a kitchen her whole life.
Exactly.
It
all comes down to personal preference.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, there's your answer to your question. So we got another Toyota question. This is actually a personal question, so shout out to our Uncle Rob. Hey, Uncle Rob, if you're watching. So he has a friend named Russ. Russ reached out to Rob. Rob put us in touch with him. And Russ is also looking to buy a Tundra. So Rob says that Russ has driven Toyota Highlanders as long as he has known him. He was looking at the Sequoia, but now he's turned on to the Tundra. Russ wants to know our thoughts on the 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. How would we rate the engine out of 10 and the truck overall? By the way, he lives in Calgary and tows into the mountains, and he's not looking for that TRD Pro model. So I did already write out a response, and I'll just reiterate it here. A couple things. First of all, if you want to give me out of 10, straight up, I think right now on the new engine, Matt, I'm feeling like a 6.5, maybe a 6.8 if I can split the hair a little bit more. I'm impressed by the power of the V6, but the fuel economy is just not quite there.
Not impressed with the fuel economy. And the other thing, too, is I think one thing hurting my image of this new motor is every time I hear more about it, oh, turbo woes, oh, this problem. And I'm like,
yeah, I hope there's no issues. I trust Toyota to build respectable and proven products.
They usually back their
we've
products.
Heard a couple things. You are right.
Yeah.
So I'm not feeling the best about it right now. Yeah. But it's not a deal breaker for me either. And the power is there. They did not miss that, and that's definitely important
not
too.
At all.
On the truck overall, yeah, I feel good about the Tundra. They did a nice redesign. The interior is way, way better. And then on his specific needs in terms of towing in Calgary up into the mountains, well, first of all, the turbocharger is going to be good for that. Turbocharged engines are. Second of all, I recommended a limited crew cab long bed. That's a mid-trim. It's where the most value is in that lineup, I think. And then if you get the long bed, I love that they offer it with the crew cab. You're getting best of both worlds with the long wheelbase for towing and the crew cab plus 6.5-foot bed. So yeah, that's sort of where I stand on that one. So hopefully that helps you out, Russ, and let us know if you end up with a Tundra.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Tyler's question.
Norton.
So Tyler Norton wanted to know what's the best truck for somebody with a small child that will also be capable enough to get out and have some fun, maybe some overlanding as well. And it's a little general, Matt, because my first question
the best truck?
Yeah, what size of truck are you looking
Yeah,
for?
mid-size, small, full-size, 3/4 ton. What do you? But let's jump to the fun things. If you have a small child, rear-facing or forward-facing, Steven and I just finishing with the Frontier this week. It's not a great option.
No,
my
it's small.
wife basically had to hug her knees, and she's not very tall to sit in that seat with our child's seat behind. He's rear-facing, mind you, but it's tight in there.
Most mid-sizers are going to be like that. So I think to that point, if I had to recommend a mid-sizer for what you mentioned, I'd say the Jeep Gladiator because it's a cool overlander and it has a decent amount of back seat space.
Yeah.
But for what you said specifically, I lean towards a half-ton, and I would say Ram Rebel, F-150 Tremor, Silverado Trail Boss. You don't got to go to those top trims, to ZR2s and Raptors, to get out and have fun.
No.
So those 3 trims of those trucks are going to give you tons of space in the back seat and, let you get out there and have some fun on the trail. So, yeah, between the big 3, I'd go with one of those. All right, Matt, why don't you give us the next one?
All right, Mr. ATV Seat Exchange asks, have you ever ridden any of the old 3-wheelers they stopped selling in the late 80s? I've got some Hondas and Yamahas and love riding them around the property. Are they popular up your way? Thank you. I don't know. Where's he from? Are you familiar with where he's from?
I don't know.
Up our way. So I'm going to assume you're south of us based on that. But regardless, I've ridden one. And it scared me because I almost dumped it almost immediately.
Hence the reason they were discontinued, right? Because everybody rolled them constantly.
Now, surprisingly, this is winding back a few years, probably almost 10 years here. We were out, my dad and I were in Newfoundland. We were doing an RV thing. And we went through this little town called Branch or Stump. Either way, a part of a tree. And there were about 40, I would say. Parked in driveways, parked at the local restaurant, at the gas station. And I'm looking at them and I'm like, you guys are nuts. There's all these cliffs and rocks around here. You're ripping around. I was like, you guys are bonkers. They're fun. I'm sure they're fun. I'm sure that you can have a great time with them. But from the safety aspect, like, I ride them cautiously, and I don't think I'd let my kid near them for years and years just to be safe.
That is fair. I've never ridden one, so I got nothing to say on that. But I have actually been looking for one. I'm always cruising ads and looking for machines to buy. And I've messaged a couple 3-wheelers that look like good deals because to me, just having a little beater Honda 3-wheeler around just to buzz around the property would be hilarious. So hopefully you'll see that on the channel one day, and hopefully we won't get hurt.
If you come across any, send them our way. We'll have a look at them.
Yeah, honestly, I love the way they look. They're so cool.
All right. Well, that was a fun one anyway. David Primo asks, looking forward to the Tundra road trip.
Yes.
I'd like to see the 2 powertrains compared. We're definitely doing that. Of course, the hybrid will scoot off the line quicker. Excellent choice of words. But will it help much with hauling? I know the Ford Power Boost has small efficiency gains and less payload.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think it should help with hauling. Again, having that bit of electric power boost, and it's a pretty big power difference between, the non-hybrid and the hybrid. Yeah. So I expect the hybrid to be that much better in every area. But I guess that is going to be the question: is how much better does the power feel? How much better is the fuel economy?
Yes.
And then, what's the price difference, and is it really worth it, right? So we'll be able to answer all of those things.
We are going to be driving 2 trucks.
Yeah.
So let's dive in.
Sure. Yeah.
We're going to be driving 2 trucks on our road trip. One of them is going to be the TRD Pro with the hybrid drivetrain in it.
Yep.
And the other one is going to be, I believe, is the TRD Off-Road?
TRD Off-Road,
TRD
yep.
Off-Road, and that is going to be the crew cab long
bed,
box.
right, with the long wheelbase.
With the twin turbo V6.
Right.
We're also towing a trailer. Now, do you remember the specs on the trailer size-wise?
It's not that
Single
long.
axle,
Yeah,
probably about
it's
8 to 10 foot long.
I was going to say 12 maybe, but yeah, it's a little cargo trailer basically. Because we're going up there, you know, the road's rough. We want to take tires. We need gear, winter gear. We need camera gear. So we needed a trailer. We didn't want to go too crazy though, because I mean we got time to make, and fuel bills are going to be a lot as it is.
And so I think we haven't really discussed it yet, but I mean I've been kind of working a framework in my head, and I think switching the trailer back and forth for like 1,000K at a time,
yeah, for sure,
maybe between the two trucks, that should give us a really good indication of mileage as far as empty driving, towing, driving, empty driving, towing, driving, something like that. But we'll definitely be able to report back very real world numbers, because we're going to be, you know, different guys, different gear, every day, different conditions, cold, hot,
and tracking,
mountains, dirt.
Tracking, I mean, every single receipt we get, we're going to actually be able to look at it. So I think it's also always interesting to follow what the computer says, and then at the end of it, sit down and say, hey, wait a second, what do our numbers say in terms of what the fuel economy was? So it's going to be interesting. And then, of course, I mean, I'm just excited. It's going to be beautiful up there. We had a bit of a new wrinkle, and of course, for anybody who lives up in that area, they're going to laugh at us. We're a bunch of Ontario boys. We don't think about the fact that there are ice bridges on the Dempster Highway, and they break up, so the Dempster closes down for a couple weeks out of the year.
Until the ferry can open.
Until the ferry can run. So when we first planned the trip, we weren't really thinking about ice bridges, and then someone called us who lives up there and says, hey, you guys got to think about this. So on average, the ice bridges break up around May 5th or 6th. And we're going to be there, I think right now it's like April 28th or something like that. We're up there on the Dempster. So we're close to those dates, and we actually rejigged the trip because now we want to get up and over the bridges as quickly as possible.
Yeah, up and back.
So this is going to be not just leisurely driving, especially not for the first couple of days. On the way back south, we'll take our time. We'll get the beauty shots to make sure you guys can really take in how gorgeous it is. But on the way up, it's going to be a hell of a rush.
It's going to be the Iron Butt 3000. I mean, and if you live in Inuvik and we miss the bridges, we're just going to be stuck.
Yeah.
So come say hi. We'll be those hobos living in the two Tundras for a couple of days, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, it's going to be so exciting. Let us know, reach out with questions you have, what you want to see along the way. We're also talking a lot about how we're going to cover the trip for you guys, and we're planning some live shows, so we're hoping to go live from the road, whether that's right from in the truck or maybe just from the hotel. We'll kind of figure that out when we're out there.
We're definitely doing lives, for sure.
And then a lot of shorts maybe and stories, so if you're already subscribed to the channel, you're going to see all of that stuff. And then I think at the end of it, 1 or 2, maybe 3 big wrap-up videos to really kind of capture everything that happened.
Yeah. If there's anything specific you guys want to see along the way, let us know. I mean, we have 5 guys driving, ourselves, our father, and then a cameraman and our French reporter. So we have and we're all different heights, different sizes. We can talk seating positions. We can talk things we like, things we don't like, comfort. I mean, anything you want to know about that truck, we got lots of hours sitting in there. Just shoot us the questions. Hell, we can even talk direct to you. Here's what we think. Here's what we saw.
Sure.
And we can do it in English. We can do it en français. Whichever you'd like.
That's
we
also
can do
true.
everything.
We also have both infotainment systems. The green TRD Off-Road has the basic gauges and the smaller screen. The TRD Pro has the digital gauges and the big screen. So yeah, lots of differences, and that's going to be great to pick them all apart. Yeah, it's going to be exciting for sure. So thanks for the question, David. Hopefully that answered it. And finally, we got our last canned question here. Comes from, and I hope I pronounce it right, Drowsy O'Leal.
I'll take it.
He asks, how does a hybrid powertrain warm up the gas engine, considering when you start it, only the electric one actually works? And that's a bit of a confusing way to say. When you start up a plug-in hybrid or even a fully electric vehicle, especially on a cold morning, how is it heating up? And I actually just asked Matthew this question. In the real world, we had that Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, and that happened to me on a cold-ish morning. I started it up, turned the heat on, and the engine didn't boot on. And I was like, this is weird. Shouldn't the gas engine come on to build up heat? And the question, or the answer to your question, is a heat pump. And I'll let Matt take it away and give you a little bit of an explanation on how a heat pump works, because I don't really know.
So think about a heat pump as I'm going to use this term loosely, a reverse air conditioning system. So air conditioners function on two premises. You have evaporation and condensation. And during those two processes, you deal with what we call latent heat. So we're all familiar with water boiling at 100 degrees Celsius. Well, at 100 degrees Celsius, when it goes from a liquid to a gas, it will actually absorb more heat from the immediate area around the actual sublimation, the change of state. And this is what we call latent. You can't measure it. You can't barely identify it. I don't know the science beyond that. That's just what I was taught. So you basically are going to suck up all that extra heat. Now you're going to go from the evaporator to the condenser. And when you get to the condenser, that latent heat that was used to change states is now going to get released. Again, immeasurable, don't quite understand, but that's how it operates. So in an air conditioner system, inside your car, you have an evaporator. So inside the car, you are going to be sucking up that heat from the cabin, making it colder, and then dumping it at the condenser at the front of the car. So a heat pump flips those two around. So now you have an evaporator outside the car sucking up latent heat from the atmosphere. And I know it's a little mind-boggling. You think, oh, it's minus 10, minus 30 outside. Where's their heat? There's still heat. There's heat around us. It's cold, but it's not absolute zero. There is still heat to suck up. So it sucks up heat from the atmosphere, sends it into the car, condenses it, and dumps that heat through the car. It just literally reverses refrigerant flow through this, what's called a heat pump. Yeah. Now, some cars, I'm not familiar with every make and brand. Yeah. Certain products will fire up the gas engine and will warm up that coolant. And beyond that, once the heat pump has done its job, the electric motors do generate heat. They're not, completely without their frictions and losses. They will generate a certain amount of heat, and that coolant that's cooling that electric motor will be used inside your cabin, similar to a heater core like you're familiar with. They're not that scary. They're not that different. That's just a different way of doing things. The heat pump is the most efficient way for an electric car to heat up. Yeah. You could just have a gigantic radiant grid,
and that would suck up so much power.
Yeah, your plug-in hybrid, what was the point? You should have just bought the regular hybrid at that point.
Yeah, totally. And it's a great question though, because it's true that everyone is just so used to, well, an ICE engine has heat, so that's how you get heat in your car. So it's a totally legitimate question to say, well, how the heck do these things produce heat? Okay, so
well, that was our last question.
Yeah, that was our last canned one.
Why don't we dive right into that one, and then I'll backtrack.
Yeah, absolutely. Taker 610, hey, $5. Thanks, we appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot.
It's a good chance now, I guess, to remind everybody else watching, we're always happy to receive your donations. Doing this is not free, and all of your money absolutely helps us to keep on doing what we're doing and to keep on making the channel better for you guys. So anything you can spare, we always appreciate it. And if not, enjoy the show for free. That's all cool, too. So Taker 610, he asks, will buyers be willing to pay more upfront for electric trucks, counting on lower cost of ownership overall? Will the average transaction price be under $60K? It's a great question, and I do love the idea of the lower cost of ownership overall. There's a lot less maintenance that should go in to owning an electric truck. Battery costs over the long haul, or replacing that battery, that might be a question that comes up. That's one thing you could talk about. I think that'll slowly become less expensive too. But I sort of, to go back to your initial question, I think we can already look at what people have talked about, which is, Ford already announced that Lightning Pro at $40,000. Now, $40,000 US. Here in Canada, it's silly. I think it starts at like 68 here or something. But anyways, who cares? 40 grand in the States for the base Lightning. And that seems like a great deal considering what you mentioned, the lower cost of ownership overall. I don't know. I think there's going to be a range.
On the other end of that spectrum, with the electric car market we see, and I like to use Tesla as a benchmark. I will use them as an electric car benchmark because they are on the leading edge of that. People are willing to pay more because electric cars, you can do some cool stuff with them.
Sure.
You can turn them up, turn them down. A simple software update can completely change how everything runs. It's going to be an interesting market because you're going to get the early adopters who are willing to pay whatever to get in. Then you're going to get the people that are scared to get in, so they're going to want to try it cheaply. And you're going to get the full spread. I think are people going to be willing to pay more because of cost of ownership? I don't often hear cost of ownership come into the equation at the dealership level. It's something the sales guys throw in there usually when people are hemming and hawing, and that maybe tips people over the edge. But a lot of people come in and they're more worried about, will my seat heater kill my battery, and can I charge it in less than 6 hours? Yeah. Those seem to be the bigger questions versus what's this going to cost to own over time.
Yeah.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think it's been interesting, too, watching General Motors jump in with the Hummer. They went the other way where they're like, we're going to launch this insane $110,000 EV truck first. And obviously anybody buying the Hummer is willing to spend a crazy amount of money to get that thing. But I don't think anybody, like you just said, I don't think anybody buying the Hummer is thinking about cost of ownership, right? Yep. It's going to come into play once these trucks get more affordable. But they are getting more affordable, and we have to wait. That's the tough thing with this whole market. It's a bit of a wait and see right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, 2 right off the top, and they're not questions, but they're just things I want to address because I can.
Sure.
Northern Toyota, at least the weather in the garage should be getting warmer. It is a lot nicer in here. I've only got one layer tonight, not 5.
It is getting better. We were very silly for starting this in the middle of winter, starting the live shows.
Yeah, especially before I got my heater in up here. And then Mr. Toasted Yogurt says he loves our channel. You guys helped me pick my first truck, a Toyota Tacoma.
Right on.
So I'm glad we could help, and hopefully you enjoy it. All righty. So
I saw a great one, Matt. Somebody asked, what's the bike in the background? Is that an e-bike?
Yeah, it is actually. I just bought that.
Yeah.
That is a Rad Rover. It's a couple of years old. I got it for a song because it needs a little bit of work. The guy was worried that there's a broken wire and this and that, and I can probably fix that. I do it for a living, or at least pretend to. So yeah, that is my new commuter. So with gas prices the way they are, my wife and I thought, well, I only work 9 kilometers from home. I have this really nice trail that is paved and pretty flat between here and there. And I am not necessarily the most athletic person out there. So I thought to myself, I don't mind riding a bike to work, but there's going to be days where I'm going to be done and I'm just not going to want to pedal home. So I got a bike that will haul me and my fat ass, forgive the language, down the trail to get home.
Nice.
So yeah, that's an e-bike directly behind me.
Nice. Love it. I see a question that Brett just asked. I'll let you dig back into some of them from before.
Sure.
Will the Cybertruck be better than the Rivian? That is a good question. And my stock answer at the moment is, I don't know. The Cybertruck doesn't exist yet. It seems like it's going to. Tesla just announced, I can't remember what they called it, but they announced a big event that's coming up. Oh, Cyber Rodeo, I believe they called it. So we got to assume that we're going to see something more production ready at Cyber Rodeo. But yeah, so far, no. Rivian is way better because they are producing actual vehicles and selling them. Yeah.
It's tangible, it's real. You can go order one, drive one, look at one.
The Tesla sounds impressive, all the numbers that they've already put out, absolutely. And Tesla usually does go above and beyond with those crazy cool features. But once again, with that company, I'm always just believe it when you see it. And generally, they do what Elon says they're going to do, just really, really late. He announced all those cars, and they did eventually come out, but it was always late. So I expect Cybertruck to be real. I'm not a hater that way.
No.
I don't know when we're actually going to get one.
Yeah. All right. Frank McEdgar asks us, can you guys see Ford making their own version of a Gladiator out of a Bronco?
That's a great question.
That is a cool question.
A Bronco truck would be cool. And I mean, forever before the Gladiator came back, guys were taking Wranglers, chopping off the back end, putting little truck beds back there, right? So I won't be surprised if someone does that with the Bronco.
And I mean, you can call back to the original Broncos in the late 80s, early 90s, when they had that removable rear section. They had a roll cage, but I mean, it was kind of like a truck. It had its roots in truckiness, if you will. So as the market evolves, I'm sure if there's a place for it. I don't know if Ford wants to broaden their truck strategy that much more at this point.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was going to bring up is like, how do you sell it next to a Ranger? Especially the new Ranger Raptor. That thing looks super cool. So you're going to be like, here's the Ranger Raptor and here's the Bronco truck. And how are they really significantly different, right? Because the Ranger Raptor's really good now. So that's the only holdup there I could see. I love the idea.
It is cool.
But it does sound like I don't see it in practice actually working. I think Ford would be a little too jammed up with small trucks. What else?
More woes with the more woes with production here. Local Ram dealers have 50 trucks on the lot while Ford, GM, Toyotas are empty. Wonder what's the case.
Yeah, it's so hard to say with any
Yeah.
brand. They're all different. Dealer allocations, right? That's another thing we don't talk about, but they're all over the place. If you're a really successful dealer, the Ram or Ford is going to ship you more trucks, right? If you don't sell any trucks, they're not going to. So it's so hit or miss on who has trucks and vehicles right now. Everyone we hear about in the market is just struggling to find things. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to say about it than that. Hopefully we get through this chip shortage and things start to normalize soon in terms of inventory.
So, in reference to, I'm going to try and read this one slowly because I just trying to understand it. In reference to your towing video of the Gen 3 Raptor, would a drive mode help with the squat, or does it need aftermarket helper airbags, etc.?
Well, here's my
tough
take.
question.
Well, no, my take is those aftermarket bags would probably help somewhat, but I'm the person who doesn't think I'm smarter than the Ford engineers. They engineered it that way. I'm gonna let it be that way. It did squat when we towed with it, and that squat, I mean, it makes it a little bit soft feeling, and you don't have necessarily the confidence that you want. But it's a Raptor, man. It's not a crazy big towing truck. So for me, yeah, I don't know. I remember it feeling not the best, but not nearly bad enough to think that I had to go aftermarket. And like I said, to mess with what the engineers intended.
And I think we say this a lot, but at the end of the day, it's your usage. How much towing are you doing versus how much Raptoring are you doing?
Sure.
Is that the truck for you?
Yeah, and are you towing 8,500 pounds? I believe that's the limit now of Raptor, or you're towing 4,000 pounds. Or you're probably towing heavy if you're asking about helper springs. But yeah, I'm just not one to recommend them, man. I like the way that Ford designs that truck. I think they make it tow that way for a reason, and I wouldn't mess with it personally.
Yeah.
Well, what else we got? I love that Fasted said the bike is kind of an off-roader. It is. It's got huge fat wheels on it. It's cool, man. I want to get a nice
We've got just a lot of
e-bike now.
chat going on here tonight. People just chatting with each other, but I will sift through them.
Yeah, well, we got a fresh one here I can see.
Oh.
Saj Speed 69 asks, I'm looking for an overland build. 4Runner, Tacoma, or Rubicon. Which would you choose if it was a daily? That's a good question. I mean, the first difference is 4Runner fixed roof SUV, Tacoma midsize pickup truck, or Rubicon a Jeep where the roof comes up. So I don't know. That's going to be your first question, is how do you want to tackle that? If you end up going 4Runner or, I mean, Tacoma, you're probably going to go rooftop tent. I guess you can do that with the Rubicon as well. Personally, for me, overlanding, Matt, I actually like the idea of the 4Runner. I like the idea of the fixed roof. Obviously, with the truck bed, you get all those awesome, cool steel cages now, and you can mount your tent and all your stuff on it. But with the 4Runner, you end up having more space on the inside to keep stuff safe and dry. And then, I don't need to tell you about the reputation of the 4Runner. You're not going to have to worry about it out there. So of those three, I think I lean Toyota because for me, the Wrangler is cool that the roof comes off, but it's not that big a deal. I'd rather have the fixed roof of the Toyota. That's kind of where I really split it and break it down.
Especially in the overlanding application, because I mean, Toyota will sell you a roof basket, and I mean, we've been to several overland shows or expos, things like SEMA. There are so many companies out there that go, oh great, we got rails, we can build to those rails. They're ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. I'd go 4Runner.
Well, right off the hop, I've got a block of about 10 here. Everybody says spare tire for the win. That was the win from our question from earlier.
That's because I love our audience, because they're probably all people who can change their own tires too. So I appreciate that about you guys.
More than likely. And then I had is that Steven's brother?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is.
It's pretty obvious.
Did you figure that out? Did you just take a guess?
Yeah, it is fairly obvious. Matt's my older brother too. I should ask them to guess, but too late.
Oh,
Matt's my older brother. People are never totally sure. He's got a few years on me.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
What else do you see?
It's just a lot of chat. Newfies love their big reds. Like I said, when we drove through that town, I'd never seen so many in one small area.
Newfoundland, I remember hearing the stat, I believe has the most power sports vehicles per resident anywhere in Canada. The most ATVs and side-by-sides per capita based on the population, they're in Newfoundland. So right on Newfoundlanders, man. They all just like cruising around on their ATVs. I love that.
Frank McEdgar asked, is using your e-brake 100% of the time, even on level ground when parked, unnecessary? It's an interesting question. Is it unnecessary? No. I mean, it was designed originally as a park brake system. The emergency brake thing kind of came along as we got more into automatic transmissions. Even on level ground, I mean, not saying your transmission's suddenly going to let go or let you roll away, but somebody bumps into you. It's never a bad thing. And I mean, in the instances of, from the dealership side, from the mechanic side of things, there are certain brands out there that if you don't use your e-brake a lot, that thing is going to seize. I mean, my simplest example is I tell my dad all the time, turn your e-brake on. Even if you're not driving the truck. On Ram products, I've changed more e-brake cables on Ram products in the last 10 years than
Interesting.
comparable to a lot of other brands at the very least, I'll say. So I tell them all the time, I'm like, you put your e-brake on once a month, at least once a month. Just put it on. Otherwise, it's going to cost you.
And actually, it's interesting now, too, because a lot of e-brakes have gone electric. There's no more handle, right? And a bunch of companies, they're automatic. So you put that car in park, and that e-brake comes on every single time anyways. And then I guess for a lot of us, too, who grew up or started driving on a manual, it's just habit. That's what it is for me. I usually put it on just because I like putting the e-brake on. I feel a little bit safer.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to save that one for the end because that's a good lead into our other talk.
Sure.
Just a lot of talk about inline engines and why they went away. There's been 3 or 4 in here, so I'll just kind of lump them all together. Inline engines are great. I mean, traditionally speaking,
balanced.
Much more balanced, much less problems. I mean, yeah, why did they go away?
Packaging?
I think sizing.
Yeah.
Sizing. You can cram a V into a much smaller area. And when we got into, especially into the 80s and 90s, when it was like minivans, bigger SUVs, it's like we got to cram this in, but still have the power.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest reason for losing them, because you didn't have that long nose to hide them under anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. And now trucks are so big that, yeah, you definitely can fit them in there. And I think it's cool that it's an i6 and not a V6, you know, going away a little bit from traditional thinking.
Yeah, when's Big Green coming out? Ron asks. Ron Nelson, nice to see you again.
Yeah, good question, Ron. Soon, very soon. You know, up here in Ontario, I got to wait for the snow to melt, but the big thing is I like to wait for one big rainstorm to come to wash all the crud off the roads, especially the salt. And we're getting there. It's just starting to warm up today. By, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks from now, mid-April, Big Green will probably make an appearance. And actually, Dad and I are planning to do taking our trucks out of storage video, because he's got his old 71, I got Big Green. So we're going to take them out and clean them up, and we're actually going to make a whole video about that. So that's coming up in the next month or 2.
Yeah. All right. And then we got 2 questions, and I'll lump them together because it kind of ties into what you're doing next week.
Sure.
So when will we be seeing a new Trail Boss and or when will we be seeing a new 2022 Chev 1500 with the updated 2.7 liter?
All right, yeah, good question. So Trail Boss, I don't know. This is interesting. We just did have a 2022 Silverado on the channel, but for 22, they're actually still building the old interior, at least they did for a little while, and then they switched over to the new truck and the new interior. So we still haven't driven the updated truck, which was your question. Dad and I on Monday, so coming up in just a couple days, we're flying down to California to drive the brand new 2022 ZR2 Silverado. So we are going to try that out. I don't know about the 2.7 or the Trail Boss right now. Once the new truck launches, GM Canada will probably get a bunch of different versions here on fleet for us to test, but I would probably put that summer or fall timing of this year. But the exciting thing is just next week, we're going to go down there and drive the ZR2. And Matt, the weird thing for me personally is it's going to be my first time on an airplane in over 2 years, which, you know, we travel a lot in this business because there's a lot of these car launches. So before that, I was gone twice a month at least. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, just to get on an airplane and fly somewhere, feel normal again.
Yeah, well, that's next week. So we're pretty much all caught up on questions, and we're coming down to the bottom of the hour.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this week, what we just did, and what we've got coming.
Yeah, Matt and I had fun this week. You might have seen, we put out just a little teaser on the channel. Matthew and I took a Jeep Gladiator Willys, and we took a Nissan Frontier Pro 4X, and we went and crashed around in the ice.
Yeah, we broke through the ice. It was it was fun.
Yeah, again, off-roading at this time of year is you never know what you're going to get. It's usually starting to melt, so it's getting muddy and soft, but then you get these cold nights that freezes everything. So we showed up in the morning, we broke all the ice, and by the time we left in the afternoon,
it was a muddy mess.
Muddy and soft. So it was a great test. I think it's got a great result, good visuals. I'm excited to get that one out there. So watch for Gladiator versus Frontier.
Yeah. And then coming up this weekend, we're going to be shooting, we hung on to the Pro 4X, it's still here. And then what did you bring up?
So I got the brand new 2022 Ford Ranger with the new Splash Package, or the new again Splash Package, because I guess they used to offer this back in the 90s or maybe the 80s.
Yep.
And it's an appearance package. It makes the truck look really cool. It's got a bunch of cool graphics on it, and it also has the FX4 package. So it's a Lariat, so it's perfectly comparable to our Nissan. So yeah, we're also going to compare the Ranger with the Frontier. That's going to be more of an on-road comparison. We're going to dig into back seat space and bed space and tie downs and
max payload.
And max payload.
We
absolutely.
already loaded up the Frontier, but we may as well do it again and shoot them side by side.
So that's another exciting thing that's come to the channel. You're going to see this soon too. A brand new max payload test. I went and bought over 1,000 pounds of rubber, 3/4-inch rubber mats. I love this because I can load them myself. For two guys, we can load them in just 2 minutes. We can do a max payload test, and it's going to be easier than having to use those barrels that we normally use. So that's exciting too, Matt. We're going to have more payload testing on the channel, and you're right. We're going to start this weekend, and I actually think what we're going to start with is I want to do fully loaded 0 to 60 Frontier versus Ranger, because the Frontier has the most power in the midsize segment, but the Ranger just feels really, really powerful with that turbo engine.
All right.
And I want to see which one pulls a little bit harder. So
Fully loaded drag race.
exactly.
I like it. I like it.
Well, not drag race, because that would be illegal and unsafe. So we'll do them one at a time, but you get the point. Yeah, man. So that's really exciting. And then ZR2 next week. And then, of course, Tundra to the Arctic. And April 19th is the kickoff date for our Tundra trip. So we'll probably release one more video where we go on about the specific
Starting
dates.
next week, I think. Once Dad's back in Canada, we'll sit down and we'll put together another reel for you guys, some more information and some hard dates and times, and give you an idea of when to follow along. If it's a truck you're considering, I don't think you're going to get a better glimpse.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
One week in a truck with a journalist is great, but this is going to be 11 solid days of hours and hours of truck content.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quite the event to follow.
Yeah, it's cool, man. One other question, Matt, before we sign off.
Sure.
Adam did ask us, what would be your recommendation on a half-ton right now if you're in the market? He currently has an 18 4Runner, but he's missing the bed use. He's having a difficult time deciding with all the options because there's a ton of options. That's a fair thing to struggle with.
Yeah.
Real quick, Matt, this happened to you, right? You owned a truck for years, and then you traded it or sold it for that Pontiac Grand Prix. And I'll never forget you just walking around being like, I miss my bed. I just want a bed. I can't throw stuff in the bed anymore.
I was young and dumb. I bought a 1988 Dodge D-150, regular cab, 8-foot bed, and then I went to college, and I thought, oh man, I need a car because I like my friends. And then I got out of college and I went, I hate people. I want my truck back.
So yes, anyways, like we can identify with the, you miss the bed when you don't have it. You get so used to it. And then when it's not there, it's annoying.
I'm currently truckless and my poor Toyota Matrix takes a beating, trust me.
Totally. So Adam, back to your original question. What's your recommendation? First of all, not to be mean, but with no information, this is a very hard question because my answer is always, well, what are you going to do with your truck? And then we can tell you the best one for that application. If you just want a carte blanche answer, I will give it to you. Matthew, if I had to go buy a half-ton today, I believe I would probably buy an F-150 Power Boost. I've said that before on the channel. I love the hybrid power, and I really like the Pro Power onboard generator. So if you need a half-ton today, that's where I personally lean.
Yeah. I personally, I've always been a GMC over Chevy fan, and that's just a personal thing. I like the logo more than the bow tie.
That's fair.
Don't crucify me. But Z71, on a GMC Sierra, that would be the way to go. Half-ton crew cab, long box if I can get it in that package.
Nice.
That would be the way to go. And
Okay.
then one last shout out, because this is now the 3rd week in a row we've got this comment from different people. We look like Strange Brew. Good day, eh?
We got to stop wearing toques. I need a haircut though, so I need my toque on.
There you go. How's that? A little more real.
But yeah, I mean, I guess when two Canadians get together and sit in a garage, it's just inevitable.
We don't even say a lot of A's, I don't think.
Yeah, we probably do.
We should say some more, maybe.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. As always, we go live bi-weekly, so make sure you join us next time. And yeah, ta-ta for now. If you want to send us questions, hey, that's HEY @trucking.ca, and we'll do our best to answer them. And till next time, take care.
We're going to go for beers, eh?
All righty.